Hello and welcome to New Filmmakers Los Angeles in partnership with Movie Maker magazine. My name is Danny DeLillo and we're here at the South Park Center and I'm here with Jonatas Silva with his movie Life on a String. Let's take a look at the clip.
I would have not left high school because I actually dropped off high school because my dad was not with us, so I actually had to work. There was nobody with us, and I wasn't gonna let my mom work, so I actually left high school to start working here full time.
When I hear a black child who looks at Paris model and calls her ugly because her lips are full.
Thank you so much for being here, Jonatas. Amazing film. For those that haven't seen it, tell us the brief synopsis of your documentary.
Yeah, so Life on a String is a documentary about two puppeteers of color here in Los Angeles as they kind of put their selves completely into, this art form and refuse to give it up no matter the obstacles. And we take a look at how this art form, this ancient art form, has really changed them and helped them.
Gary and Kane, your subjects, were just absolutely incredible characters, and you could tell how much they love the work that they actually do. Now, where did you come about this project, and where did your inspiration come from and just turn it into a film?
Yeah, so I was actually on my way to make a different documentary.
Oh, wow.
I was trying to make a documentary about African immigrants in LA, and I was walking down the street to go meet with one of the potential subjects for the other documentary.
Yeah.
And I passed this wall, which is Gary's workshop, full of these, black puppets. And I was like, this is fascinating. And so I just walked inside just thinking, oh, this is an exhibit. This is gonna be like, an artist just, whatever, just presenting there. But then he was there and I started talking to him and he talked for 2.5 hours with me.
Wow.
And he was so excited, he was so passionate. And the whole time I'm thinking, this man has given 40 years of his life to puppetry.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, why?
Yeah.
And that's the only question in my head is like, why would somebody do that? Like, why would somebody I don't know, I just couldn't understand. And so I kept coming back, kept talking to him, and the more I talked to him, the more I think I saw similarities in the way that I pour myself into my own work as a filmmaker and as an artist, and the way that he was pouring himself into the work of puppetry.
Yeah.
And so through that, I decided to just this is too rich of a little world to miss out on. The more people need to know about this. And so I just started exploring that, and through that, checked out Bob Baker Marionette Theater, where I met Cain, and then Cain's family, and then it just became Life on a String. So.
I love, okay, two things. So one thing, you're walking down the street and you discover a documentary for another documentary you weren't going to make. That's fascinating that you did that, and it just shows a filmmaker, your inspiration can come at a moment when you least expect it. And secondly, I love the fact that you made a film because you were to understand why, and you wanted to make a documentary and kind of give the answer to that, which I think is brilliant. Now, that world, the world that they've created, these incredible puppets, and the fact that he's dedicated 40 years is just a fascinating journey. And also how things have changed over the years as well, and how it is today. What was it like unraveling? Because you just see Gary's world and you're like, all these incredible puppets and the fact that he has dedicated his entire life. Why do you think he did it? And what was his motive? I mean, when we see it in the film, but you as a filmmaker, what did you really see?
So the film actually was made in the constraint of a thesis film for my MFA program at USC, and so there were some limitations there as far as timing, so I couldn't really explore. But really, one of the things that I found out through Gary is, for both of them, this really saved them from where they were. Gary was raised in Chicago in a pretty bad neighborhood. He couldn't really go past a certain point, or never thought he could. And when he did and checked out this puppet theater, he saw this whole different world where he was accepted and he was, seen as, as an equal, at a time where it was pretty segregated.
Yeah.
And so I think it kind of helped to take him out of that and kind of give him a purpose and a future and just put a different world behind him, you know? So I think it was really a way for both of them to save them. Cain the same way, kind of saved him, from joining gangs, from, being part of that. And, he even talks about it, but we didn't include it, being just around an environment that really kind of was pulling him towards that gang life, and being able to step away from that and focus on puppetry instead.
Yeah.
And so for Gary, I think he did it just because, again, it saved him and gave him a purpose, you know? He, and he had, like you said, 40 years, right? So back in the day, it was just the Jim Henson and the Muppets, you know, are
incredible,
pretty
yeah.
big, and like
Yeah.
puppetry was something that people went like almost like the opera, you know,
Yeah, yeah.
where they went to watch, and the Kumsam Theater
Yeah.
in Chicago was pretty big, and then he saw a decline where like today people don't even think about puppetry as like, oh, let's go see a puppet show. You know,
Yeah,
nobody
yeah,
thinks about that.
yeah.
And so to him, I think it's been really hard to like dedicate so much time in his whole life to something that people now don't really, you know, value as much.
Yeah.
But he had done performances for Disney. You know, he's, you know, got offers from Jim Henson to join the
Yeah.
Muppets, and he turned that down to do his own. You know,
I love that. Who wanted to be his
puppet
own
theater.
authenticity for that as well.
And he has a message
Yeah.
to say. I think that's why his puppets are all black. He wants
Yeah.
to show, you know, like African Americans that they are beautiful no matter
Yeah.
what kind of features they bring into it. And that's something that really also drew me to like
Yeah.
his work, you know, like he had something to say with it.
Yeah, that actually, it was just one of the most beautiful things that he said. He's like, he wanted to show how beautiful people were, you know, through puppetry. And I thought that was really quite something we could all just, you know, take on board today, the beautifulness of our great differences, you know. I love his relationship with Cain. Like, you know, it is really wonderful to see someone who evolved into a world he never thought he was going to be in, and how much love, the dedication he has for that. What was it like working with him on that journey? Because, you know, he's this really almost does feel like his life now, and you almost feel like he might be the future of this puppetry world as well.
Yeah, so Cain is actually the oldest member of that puppet theater, the Bob Baker. And he started when he was like 15, 17, and he's been there now 17 years. And so working with him and talking to him and discovering his life has just been fascinating, especially because, like I said, you know, he was had to do it just to kind of provide for his family. His father left them hanging, and he was the oldest, so he quit high school. He joined the puppet theater. It was the way that he could make money here as an immigrant. And he really kind of helped raise his siblings, you know, and he has a brother with Down syndrome that he helped to raise. And so all of his siblings kind of see him like as a father figure.
Yeah, you can tell that in the film.
Yeah, and it was really interesting because we came at a point where his dad was just back into his life. His mom had just let his dad back in. And his dad was like, I want to come see your show. And he's like, you haven't been here. My whole life was kind of like put into this whole turmoil because of you. But also because of you, like he found this, you know, art form that he really loves and he gives everything to. So it was an interesting journey with Cain, you know, especially to like watch him as he eventually got convinced by his family to let his dad come see the show. And we didn't know what to expect. We didn't know, you know, like how that was gonna be, you know, when the dad came to theater. But
it was a great thing to see, actually.
Yeah,
it was.
We were really lucky as filmmakers to have caught that moment. You know.
Bringing people together through puppetry.
Exactly.
Families together. You know, obviously Gary is you know, the fact that he has, you know, turned down companies like Jim Henson and kept his own authenticity. Do you think he didn't want the message to be lost of why he was doing this, you know, because obviously, you know, his puppets, they all had these beautiful characters, and, you know, predominantly they were black puppets as well. And I think it was such a therapeutic way for him to go for a period of America that was going through such a separation. You think that was kind of part of the reason why he evolved in through puppetry, his artistry, to kind of get through a period like that?
I believe so. I mean, like, he talks about being in Chicago and being thrown rocks at, you know, like to get away from this neighborhood where puppetry was part of. And so I think he comes from an area where he saw the need to, you know, tell the world and tell all the African Americans that, like, you know, you don't have to be ashamed of who you are. And I think he really turned them down because he thought that maybe it was too watered down, I guess, in the other place. I mean, I think there's still a lot of value in the Muppets, and they teach kids a lot of great things, but I think he had a very specific message that he wasn't sure he was going to be able to say there. And it could be more effective. You know, he used to be pretty big, actually, in Chicago. You know, like, there are some archival footage of Gary in Chicago, and it's like a lot of people, you know, clapping. And then to see the contrast with a performance that he actually did while we were shooting of, like, 5 people in the theater, you know, like, that was really, really interesting to see how that has changed. And I think the message, sadly, you know, is still really, really relevant today.
Sadly,
You know, so I think more people need to know about that. And his work is beautiful. He does, you know, ballet. He does, like, very, very, very intricate performances with these puppets, and really through it he tells stories of like kids like being fascinated by the look, by the big lips now, by the nose, and like being happy that they also look like the puppets, you know. So I think it was a way for him to really express all of the things that he suffered, you know, the things that he went through, to let other people know that like, hey, it's okay, you know, like you don't have to change. You know?
You're beautiful.
You're beautiful.
What was the biggest challenge you faced as a filmmaker making this project?
The biggest challenge I would say is when you're working with people that are like, this is their life, right? This is something that really matters a lot to them, and it's something that like saved them, right? They hold it very dearly. They don't want to necessarily like let you in because they don't know what you're gonna do with that information. They're also trying to make a living out of it, so they were really afraid that like I was just trying to exploit them and being like, this is a dying art form, and they're like, no, it's not dying. We don't want it for you to say that it's dying, because like it's, you know, there's so much potential, and it's, you know, it's changing, and
it's an art form that exists.
That exists,
know about it.
And so I think that was one of the biggest challenges, like getting them to trust me, that like I also was fascinated by this world, that I wanted the world to see it, and that they could trust me and let me into their life, you know. Well, because I wasn't interested in just doing a crafts piece about puppetry. I was really interested to see, like I said in the beginning, why they were doing it, what led them to this, their life as a puppeteer, you know, like just as me, like why did I choose filmmaking? You know, I have my reasons, you have your reasons for choosing it. And so I wanted to know, why did a puppeteer choose to be a puppeteer and give their whole life to it?
What's it been like to have your film in front of an audience at like NewFilmmakers LA? What's that experience been like?
Oh, it's been incredible. NewFilmmakers LA has been a dream for me, you know, so
You're a dream for us.
Thank you. So to be able to screen and to be able to have, you know, this platform, especially as an emerging filmmaker and as a Latino filmmaker, has been really, really a great thing for me, you know, and I really appreciate it. It's been really interesting to see the feedback, you know, from people that have watched it, and to have them come up to us afterwards and tell us like, they were tearing up, that they cried. Cain has come to, you know, a crew screening that we did, and we invited a couple of other friends.
Great.
And he was tearing up during the whole thing. So to see them, you know, also love the film, and to see them, other people affected by it. We had a guy who, this is really cool about actually, who watched the film and afterwards approached me. He's like, hey, I hadn't talked to my dad in like 5 years, but I watched that. And I just called my dad, and I just want to let you know, like, thank you for, you know, putting this story together. And it's like, I mean, I couldn't have done if the subjects hadn't like opened up their lives, you know.
That must really resonate with you as a filmmaker, that how powerful a film can be, you know, because I think the most important thing is about relating to other people, but you always kind of find elements of yourself that you can relate to within those people, within those circumstances, or how you would feel in those circumstances. And so that's very powerful when you can do that, and that's an amazing thing. What's next for you?
So right now, I was born and raised in West Africa. I'm Brazilian, so I'm Latino, but born and raised in West Africa.
Worldly traveled,
Yes, all over. And so what I want to do is I want to go back to Senegal, West Africa, and shoot a documentary over there about the street kids that live there. So
fantastic.
Yeah, so since I grew up there, I kind of know some of them, and I kind of want to do a little piece on their life.
That's amazing.
So that's what's next. I'm developing it. I mean, be pitching it soon around, try to get you know, some investors.
We want to see it.
Yes, you sure will.
And anyone that wants to finance it, please get in touch.
Yeah, contact.
No, congratulations on Life on the String. We loved it, and I'm looking forward to seeing much more of your work. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Danny. Appreciate
Jonatas,
it.
everybody.
Thank you.